Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 12th of January. Well, we've got some weakness building in here. We've got short-term buyers falling. You've got mid-term buyers falling. You've got a flattening of the long-term buyers. And this is typical after you've had that influx of new fund money coming in from pensions and everything at the beginning of the month. And with the Power Mode 2, though, we see continuation. We see it with the shakeout. So while we may get consolidation or retrace to the ABM yellow, maybe even a little worse if we get a spike up of shorts here, still the continuation is where things are at, even if it's just leveling off for consolidation purposes. NASDAQ, that short-term buyer fade affected it, but you can see doesn't have the same short rise in that. So you're getting a little bit of a divergence between the S&P and the NASDAQ. And of course, we'll talk about some of the problems that the NASDAQ has because some of the tech companies, but we'll save that for the end of the report. From a Euro standpoint, of course, retracing back quite a bit, it got a little bit out of whack with where the models really were, and this was just a bit of an extreme move from a Euro standpoint. Of course, it benefits the S&P in that, given the exchange rate and global trade efforts, but from a Euro standpoint, they're not too thrilled with it. They would prefer a much lower move. Of course, last positive extreme was filled with this setup here, so now we're just in a decay, and you can see there's a little bit of irregularity in the Power Mode 2, and that's just suggesting the battle between the algos. And when we're talking about that, you're talking about countries being involved in this activity. And of course, gold stabilizing after filling back while it had those positive extremes, but then you had some of the general weakness that had grown in the idea that there would be even added stimulus, particularly now with the acrimony in Washington. It'll be interesting to see how much, if anything, gets done. We had started off the day filling back the positive extremes that had been put in place and conveniently going back to all the algos that we had previously marked. We ended up with some really nice signals, both from the buy configuration. Here again, this is that dip of the steel below the zero line, and then it's a matter of waiting for the orange to dip below red as your buy configuration. In this case, it kind of went nowhere. It was flat. It was still higher in general overall from the signal line because it came on a down bar, but you had the likewise configuration secondarily, and that was on a much bigger pump, and that pushed forward. Of course, then you get the corresponding DOC spread that led to the fill back in, and this repeated itself quite regularly throughout. It was pretty clean action generally, if not just more of a sideways trade action. And as we look at the current setup right now, it's just a lot of muck in between. And this is where we're getting some of these large bars that pretty much are going nowhere. We're just trading right around that 3,800 algo, 3798 range, which was the previous positive extreme from earlier in the day. So probably going to mess around with those areas for a little bit longer in continuation. It still seems a little bit soft. We're not getting DOC readings right here at the zero line. If that rolls over, I would expect to see much more from a sustained move back down, and really nothing until you get down to this 76 range. So there's still pretty good range available, and we're still seeing a good volatility mix, which fits in line with what we were talking about. And thought I'd throw this one in the range of stupid as stupid does. You have Twitter banning one of their most popular users, the President of the United States, along with 70,000+ other conservatives from their platform. And some people will say, oh, well, this is the effect of that, but I would argue to you that it was already predetermined with the positive extreme that was set up right there. And lo and behold, supported right off of it. What a shock. I mean, every time it's had those, you get these dramatic moves right back to it. So historically, it's nothing significant. Now, what do you do with your business model when you start doing that? To me, it's a shocking thing to see when you've got Parler and some of these others removed. It's back to the days of burning books, where Amazon has said, well, we're just not going to publish you, which is effectively the same thing as banning books. I know there are quite a few school districts in that banning some of the classics simply because the speech used is not appropriate. And it's just a strange thing to see in America, where the ideals of fascism, which they all claim to be against, are exactly what they're imposing. So throw in that with the COVID restrictions and just certain, what I would call totalitarian left states. Now you're getting a situation where America is really in for some tumult, given what we're seeing. And so I think that's at some point going to play out in the markets, because when you have business decisions that are really hindering your growth potential, you got to wonder, what are you thinking? But clearly that's not the time right now, and so we'll see if that changes going forward. But at some point it's going to have an impact broader, and I think you saw a little bit of that in the NASDAQ, because it does promote the idea of more government oversight when these giant tech monopolies have the power to literally direct what you're seeing, hearing, or able to say. And that's kind of a reflection of what you see from China and the social credit scores. So interesting stuff, but thought I'd throw that in there for those that think that some of those moves are just solely related to news. They're not. They help. It's always a justification for those kind of revisits. There's always something that generates that. But at the end of the day, we can all see it on the charts, and we just go from there. As always, though, I will keep updating charts. Anything relevant, I will certainly put up. As always, though, trade well. Talk to you later.